I could tell you I talked to a lot of folks in the intel community this week, generals who were on the calls with President Trump when he talked to the head of the Taliban, and they said he made it clear in graphic terms what would happen to the Taliban if they harmed an American soldier. And for 18 months, we did not lose one American service member in Afghanistan. And as Joe Biden tries to say this is Trump's fault, it's laughable, because I talked to the Director of National Intelligence, former John Radcliffe, and he said to me, I remember being in the Oval Office with the president, and the president said, John, it's really important that we don't just pull out, that we negotiate a peace deal, an interim government before. If we don't do that, John, how quickly will Afghanistan fall to the Taliban? John Radcliffe said, sir, it would fall very quickly. And the president said, you're exactly right. It would fall in 2 days if we did not negotiate a deal for an incoming government. It's why we must do that. And he repeated over and over again, it will fall in 2 days if we don't do this. President Trump would have done that. Joe Biden did not. And it led a director of national intelligence, a different one, to say to me this was not a failure of intelligence, but a failure to listen to the intelligence, which is exactly what President Trump was doing. And as President Biden attempts to shift blame, I have a question for him. It wasn't President Trump that set this arbitrary deadline that became a Taliban red line. That was you. It wasn't President Trump that turned off the lights at Bagram Air Base, not telling the Afghan government. That was you. It wasn't President Trump that effectively gave a kill list, a list of Americans and Afghan allies to the Taliban. No, that was you. It wasn't President Trump who said, I have a brilliant idea. Let's take out the military before the civilians. No, Joe, that was you. And America can see that. America knows it. And words matter too. What's so sad to me are the words that have been used leading up to this moment, where in that interview with George Stephanopoulos about a week ago, Joe Biden said, no one's being killed right now. Then George followed up with, what about the Afghan men and women that were hanging from airplanes? And several of them did die. And he said, well, that was 4 or 5 days ago. These callous words. And now the rhetoric has changed to, I will hunt you down, in the wake of 13 service members dying. But I will hunt you down should have been the rhetoric from day one. But setting aside the very ignorant decision-making of our elected leaders, I think that will be investigated. I know it will. But what is far more important than that in this moment are those 13 American heroes that paid the ultimate price. As I was sitting backstage, I tried as hard as I could to find as many of their names as I could, and I want to read them to you. Maxton Soviak, age 22. He was a Navy hospital corpsman from Berlin Heights, Ohio. Kareem Nakui, 20 years old, a Marine from Norco, California. They deserve that standing ovation. The day before he passed away, he sent his father a video of him handing candy to a little Afghan child at the Kabul airport. David Lee Espinoza, 20 years old. He was a Marine from Laredo, Texas. Yep. Riley McCollum, age 20, from Bondurant, Wyoming. He was a Marine. He was a newlywed, and his child will be here in 3 weeks. Jared Schmidt, age 20, St. Charles County, Missouri. He was a Marine, and his dad found out at 2:40 a.m. that his son was gone. Hunter Lopez, 22. He was a Marine and he wanted to be a sheriff deputy. Dagan Page, age 23, from Omaha, Nebraska. He had a tough outer shell, but a giant heart. Darren Taylor Hoover, he was 31, from Midvale, Utah. His dad said he did what he loved, he was leading his men, and he was with them to the end. Ryan Nouse, 23, from the Army, Knoxville, Tennessee. He was a devout Christian, and his grandfather said, quote, "He was a believer, so we will see him again in God's heaven." And there are 4 more whose names that we will learn in the coming hours and days, but I have 3 words. Remember these names. Remember them. Because I can tell you this, far more than anything I was called to do, or really many of us were called to do, I can tell you, above all, these men were called for such a time as this, and they lived up to their calling. They are heroes. They paid the ultimate price. And let's end by honoring them, and each one of us this weekend say a prayer for their families, because they are now Gold Star families. Thank you, everyone.